the dizzy, but we can always share some disease. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz back. And this afternoon we had Trevor in the house, a returning guest, and he read some of his incredible poetry from his 2 latest books. Tonight I have Peter Eberhardt in the house, and we're going to talk about house flipping. That's right, Miss Liz hasn't had this topic on Tea Time yet, so we're going to bring some of that to the table and some of a little bit about Peter and get to know Peter a little bit better. So, but before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Go over to Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those good platforms. Give that a like, follow, and subscribe. And let's share these tea times because they do make a difference, not only for the guests, but for people who resonate with these stories. So let's get started with disclaimer and then an intro, and then we're going to get Peter in here and we're going to spill his tea. And his tea is truth, execution, and alignment. That's the tea we're serving tonight in the house. We don't serve a beverage, we serve words and storytelling in this house. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decisions that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly on my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or my link tree, Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, good evening, beautiful souls and Tea Time listeners. Welcome back to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where transformation is never just surface level. Tonight, I'm honored to welcome Peter Eberhardt, house flipper, entrepreneur, and someone who understands that rebuilding isn't just about properties, it's about perspectives. Peter worked in the world of house flipping, seeing potential where others see damage, restoring what has been neglected, and turning wombs spaces into renewal foundations. And it isn't that also what inner healing asks of us? To look at what feels broken, to assess the structure, to decide what stays and what goes, and what needs reinforcement. Tonight, we explore the connection between rebuilding homes and rebuilding ourselves. I'm going to welcome Peter in, and we're going to spill some tea together. So get ready to dig into both of the foundations and feelings tonight with house flipping. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you here. So, Peter, I'm going to take you down the first rabbit hole of Miss Liz.
Okay.
So who was Peter as a little guy, and who's Peter now?
Can we go a little bit deeper into little guy?
The little boy. Who was Peter as a little guy?
Who is Peter as a little guy? I would say that Peter as a little guy was a very open, very sort of exuberant spirit, and obviously as any rambunctious kids may be. But I was always pushing the buttons and pushing the limits and pushing the boundaries, and asking the tough questions. I think I was a very curious kid from a very young age, even though I didn't really put the two and two together, as probably nobody does that young. But I was just always kind of wondering why we did things how we did things, whether that be from religion or that be from. I was raised Seventh Day Adventist, and so it was very confusing to me why the seventh day. When I saw my friends going to church on a Sunday. I was also raised vegetarian, so I was always curious as to what was so bad about eating chicken or pork or any of these other foods I saw everyone thinking. And at the heart of it all, it was really just I was raised, as I think a lot of religions and cultures are. I was raised to think that my religion and my culture was the one and only and the best, and everybody else was not not good enough. And that was really shoved down my throat. And I think about until the time I had a voice as a teenager and I was able to explain myself better. That's when the clash just started, and it just, there was a very big divide between what I thought and what I wanted to do with my life, and kind of the small community had set up around me. So I separated from my family, and I separated from uh, kind of everyone that I knew at a very young age. I think I moved out when I was 16, and moved, moved a whole state away to Southern California when I was 17 and 18 to chase my dream racing BMX bikes, and just built my own identity since then. I think I might have been derailing a little bit from your question, but yeah, like who I was back then and who I am now, very similar person. It's just now I'm able to sort of put words behind the emotions that I think as a young kid was very, very tough to do.
Well, Peter, let's talk about that BMX bikes.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
How did you get into that? And I hear that you were a pro rider for a while in the Olympics.
Not in the Olympics. I was Olympic hopeful. So that was my vision, was like, I'm going to make it to the Olympics. A very one shot, one track mind. And I remember very distinctly. So I actually remember, of course, like the telephone game, like memories can change over time. So this may not have been exactly how it went down, but I remember wanting to race BMX before even knowing that BMX was like a thing. And where I came from, that was I was always riding my bike around with the other neighborhood kids. Well, we were always out riding, but I would see them go off to like football practice, soccer practice, baseball practice, where there was like a team, there was a community, and I felt very lonely. And I didn't have any interest in any of those other sports. I just wanted to ride my bike. So I remember just hounding my mom, saying like, "Hey, mom, can you find me a place where there's other kids that ride their bikes too?" And of course she didn't know if there was even anything that existed. And sure enough, like back then the newspaper was still very much read by everybody, and I think my mom found a local advertisement in the paper for the BMX track, which just so happened to be right next to the baseball fields. And I was playing a little bit of baseball, and I totally did not like it. I wasn't enjoying myself. I wasn't any good at it. And so it was about all the same time where I was like short of begging her to go find something where I could ride my bike with other kids. And there was an advertisement in the newspaper. So we just went down. There was a track about 20 minutes from my house. And I very distinctly remember that very first time going and getting on the gate where the start line was to go and start the race. I didn't know anything about the sport, but I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, very confident. And I did that for about 15, 16 years, and never made it to the Olympics. But that sport put me on the straight and narrow path throughout my teenage years and my young adult years. And I learned a lot from it that I still benefit from to this day, and, real estate and other aspects of business.
How did it create your identity?
Well, the sport pretty much created my identity for me, in the sense of like that, again, going from the straight and narrow kept me away from sort of the parties and the drugs and what all my friends got into at a young age. And I did have the identity around my bicycle. So when it came time to it that I was burning myself out from taking it too seriously, but I didn't know that I was burning myself out. And it took something as massive as COVID to basically show me about how disconnected I was from myself. And I was taking it way too seriously. I wasn't having fun anymore. I was so focused on getting to the Olympics. Like, I was way too serious about it. And so separating myself from the sport, like after I hung up the bike and I stopped racing, to becoming somebody that has a purpose and an identity that didn't include racing, and it not even included real estate. It was like, no, like, who really is Peter? And my favorite question to ask myself is, who was Peter before he was given the name Peter at birth? Like, before that label was put onto Peter, right? That was a long, and I mean, we're always still on it, right? We're always still searching, but yeah, that was a very turbulent 4 to 5 years of my life, between going from a BMX racer to quitting my day job, going full into real estate, and being very careful to not recreate an identity around real estate, but to stay true to my values and even find out what those values are. Yeah, that was a very turbulent time in my life. I had a lot of help. I had a lot of coaches. I had a lot of therapists. I just was chasing peace and contentness, and trying to figure life out, for lack of a better word.
So, Peter, what was the hardest truth you had to face when you stepped away from racing?
The hardest truth that I had to face, that I stepped away from racing, boy, that's a really good one. The hardest truth, nothing immediately comes to my mind as like a one specific truth. I mean, the identity wrapped up into that was one thing, but a couple things was my lack of social skills, or actually maybe it was, the hardest truth was that I genuinely wasn't happy. Like, everything that I was attracted to and everything that I found dopamine from and everything that I found laughter and in the moment joy from, it wasn't deep. It wasn't authentic. It was more so of a facade, like a smoke and mirror facade. And it was a bunch of basically bridging the gap between the things that I desired and my true self. There was a lot of superficial things in life. For an example, I was an Uber driver for many years. So being an Uber driver, that put me in the social settings, that put me in the party scenes, that put me where there was a lot of dopamine and money's coming in, and there's, alcohol going everywhere, and you got beautiful girls and beautiful guys and beautiful people coming in and out of your car all the time. And I really, again, I was very lonely. So I wanted to make friends, but the second that I would try to start to make any type of friendship or relationship, it just felt very unnatural. It felt very fake, and it didn't excite me whatsoever. Like, I was pretending and modifying my behavior all the time because I didn't know that it was okay to be my authentic self. I didn't know that it was okay to, like, I didn't know that I was valuable enough to just be myself. So I was always trying to be somebody else. And it took me a long time to really pin that down. So that was a pretty hard truth, was like, hey, you actually don't know who you are, and you're not as confident as you think you are. So that was the first time that, when I was able to put those pieces together and come to sense that I'm not the person that I put myself out to be, I think is when I started to actually make progress in my spiritual journey.
And how old were you when you found that spiritual journey?
Oh, 20, 26, 27.
Oh, that's an age where I too was like, I can do stuff now. But before that, it was like, who can I impress? Who am I going to make happy? Right. The people pleaser.
Yeah.
And then you get to a certain age and you look in the mirror and you're like, who the heck am I?
Yeah. Big difference. And I think that we're always going to be rebuilding that identity, every 5 years, 10 years, whatever the chapters are in life. There's always going to be a reset. I don't know if that ever goes away. But I'm definitely a lot better now at just being not being authentic, but feeling safe in my authentic self.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, I'm authentic. But then when they look in the mirror, they're like, what the heck am I doing? Like, who do I have to please today, right? To get to that seat. And
Yeah.
You know, a lot of words are used in today's society, and I look at them and I'm just like, why are you using that word when you don't even believe in yourself, when you don't have the faith in yourself, but yet you want everybody to think that you're that person, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I like having these deep, dark teas with my guests, and I like to take them down rabbit holes and get to know you guys, not just as a content. You know, I want to know my guests as people, you know, and their journeys and what got you onto your journey, Peter. So you said 26. So what happened in 26? Is that when you bought your first house?
No, that's not. I mean, that's when I bought my first actual investment property. I bought a fourplex. And I think, yeah, 20, maybe I was a little bit younger, 25. I could do the math, but it's irrelevant. I bought my first condo when I was 19 years old, and I bought my first fourplex, yeah, when I was 24, 25. And I guess going back to your question of hard truths, another hard truth was facing that I was a holic. I was a workaholic. Like, I was so addicted to escaping my reality, and I was so addicted to escaping all of the those unpleasant feelings, right? I was addicted to escaping the unpleasant feelings, the unpleasant identity that I put out for myself through work. So at first that was Uber. Uber, it was so easy to just flick it on, go drive for 20 hours straight, and just feel so numb in your mind. And because the moment that I wasn't working and I had to sit with my thoughts, it was the most uncomfortable silence of emptiness and despair that I just didn't know what to do with it. And so that workaholism, a lot of times society would label me as successful. I was buying real estate. I had a lot of money. I had a lot of cars. And I was so miserable that, like, deep down, I'm like, man, if this is what success is, like, I want nothing to do with it. Like, I want nothing to do with it because I'm miserable, and I was crying out for help, but I didn't know how to ask for help because I didn't have any friends. I was always working. And when I was around people, I felt disconnected and I couldn't talk to them. So being able to figure out how to not leverage my workaholism, but how to curb it, and how to rest intentionally, to sit with myself, to learn myself. It was after that fourplex, after I renovated it and I started to, I got the cash flow coming in. I'm like, man, I want to do that again. And so I started chasing down the next thing, which was buying bigger apartment buildings and being able to turn around these massive assets, these 90 unit, 100 unit apartment buildings. And again, having success with it and being labeled as successful. And I'm like, okay, there's a cycle here. There's a pattern. What do we need to do to stop it? And I was always searching for, like, a label. I was always searching for a sentence that could sum up how I felt, why I was feeling that way, and how to get out of it. And I searched for that sentence for years. And through therapy, through high performance coaching, through natural plant medicine, really understanding why my nervous system would just freak out when it came close to any other human, whether that be in a business setting, in a personal setting, in a friendship setting, relationship setting, like whatever it was. It was really like understanding why, where that trauma came from, how that affected me today. I'd always labeled my childhood as like, okay, like I definitely had a lot of needs that didn't get met, as everybody does, right? Everybody has needs that don't get met, but it's understanding what exactly those needs were and not why they didn't get met, because that's a little open for interpretation. But like, what are we going to do about it now to take control now, to self-fulfill, to reach out, ask for help, or understand boundaries to get those needs met. So like, the workaholic part, and around that time, like I'm about 30 and a half years old now. So like that 25 to 30-year-old, that's the part of me that I was very intentional on finding peace and contentness, because I knew that, like I said, whatever I want to put my mind to, I know that I can do it. Like, whether it's money, status, success, materialistic things, but I'm like, how do I feel safe with connection? Like, how do I feel safe in a partnership, how do I feel connected just in general, whether that be to the world around me, to the, the people that I'm hanging out with. And that was a very raw journey for me. And I'm not over it, right? Like I'm always going to be finding out about myself, but like right now I have a life partner, and um and I am just now piercing the tip of like what it actually means to not only be connected to somebody and feel validated and seen and understood and loved, but what the impact that has on my organization, the people I interact with on the day to day, how I feel about myself. Like it's incredible. And finding out about myself and chasing my own traumas, it really also allowed me to see the need in the world for, just for transparency, for compassion, and just for an empathetic understanding that is, it's I don't know why our like the Americans, don't get me started on this Western world, and
I'm in Canada.
yeah, you start traveling to other countries and other cultures, and you start like really seeing how other people carry themselves and how they live their lives. And I'm not quite sure how the Western world got so effed. But there's a definite need for people to be seen, heard, understood, accepted, and loved. So yeah, we could take that in any direction we want, but I digress.
Well, Peter, when you were a workaholic, I'm a workaholic, and I do it because it keeps the noise. It doesn't get quiet, right? It doesn't make you think about stuff. So I just like to work and work and work and work, so I don't have to deal with that heavy stuff. Does that make sense to you? Why you are working so hard?
Well, that's the reason why. I mean, that's why I labeled it as workaholic, because I think of like what defines a holic. And like Dr. Gabor Mate, I'm not going to phrase that brilliant mind, but I'm a big supporter and fan of Dr. Gabor Mate. And, talking about the definition of addiction is a temporary relief from a undesirable feeling or pain, and whatever substance that you need to do that. Like you can be addicted to working out, you can be addicted to running, you can be addicted to working, you can be addicted to drugs. But a lot of people think that trauma and addiction is only around substance abuse or drinking abuse, but there are many other ways to escape reality. I mean, you said it yourself, like workaholism.
Yep.
I could identify with Uber, and now that I'm really getting my real estate business like going in the path that I want it to go, I struggle with the same workaholic tendencies. I get in front of my computer at 8 o'clock in the morning, and before I know it, it's 8 o'clock at night, and I just want to keep going. My body hurts because I haven't stood all day, right? Like, yeah, I go to the gym, but I'm not going to label myself as healthy if I'm sitting down for the other 10 hours. That's not healthy, right? And why do I do that? Is it because I don't have any friends that I feel like I can just pick up the phone, go hang out with, but actually have a genuine like hangout, like how we did when we were kids? Or is it all just kind of surface level relationship, real estate related type of friendship? What is it? Am I escaping? Like I'm working on creating a life that I don't need a vacation from. Like I'm working on creating a life that I don't need an escape from.
Yeah.
So that's a very fine line because I could create a business and I'm always working in the business. But yeah, developing those relationships in general, to me, that's the key to life. And that's always going to be the hardest key to unlock. You think of all the different factors that influence personality and connection. I mean, that's going to be the biggest mountain for anyone to climb, is to build a community around themselves where they feel connected to. And that starts with your personal relationships, and that, and it branches out from there. So yeah, it's asking yourself really, if I am a workaholic, if I can label myself as that term, what is the missing part that would allow my life to be more complete to where I wouldn't want to escape it? What are you escaping? And that's a question that will always change for me. Like that answer will always change for me. Took me many years and I'm still even trying to answer it. And there's also a factor of having grace and compassion where like, yeah, being a workaholic, it does serve you. There are parts of your mind that, that part of your mind that allows you to just laser in and focus on one thing or one task for an extended amount of time. It serves a purpose. But at the same time, there can be, I don't like to, think of it as like boundaries, but it does serve a purpose. Do give it grace. It does exist, right? That is a part of you. That is a part of us as entrepreneurs. But it doesn't have to be the whole picture. It's okay to let some other parts of ourselves in from time to time and allow the room for genuine connection.
You talk about connection a lot, Peter. How did you get connected to house flipping?
Well, that was just the stepping stone in my real estate journey. That was in a search for my identity from getting into multifamily, getting a fourplex, moving into that fourplex for 8 months, turning over all 4 units. And after exiting that deal, like, okay, what's next? Well, I want to go and flip the big apartment buildings. So you talk about that cycle that is talked about a lot, like in the 12-week year, you have your uninformed optimism, and then you have your informed pessimism, your valley of despair, and then you have your informed optimism. And like me, I went through that cycle maybe, gosh, I don't know how many times, 10 or 11 times over a 2 to 3 year period. And the entire time I was always presented with opportunities to house flip. And I never wanted to because my mind was like thinking about so much bigger things. And the short of it is that I got into best and final on this 13 unit apartment building. I did not get awarded the deal. And it freaked me out enough. And it basically brought to light the true things that I didn't have, which were connections and money, but money can come from connections, right? Like I didn't have the connections. So, and about the same time, I had a friend in my circle that again presented me the opportunity to house flip. And I was like, you know what? Let me house flip to like learn the systems, build the systems, learn the leadership, build the leadership. And yeah, maybe I'll make some money along the way because at the end of the day, like I still want to flip big apartment buildings. Like that's kind of my end goal as a materialistic goal. And so I started house flipping, and I'm so glad that I did because talking about the identity, you think that you're a very confident person until your inner child gets triggered and traumatized from all these conversations that you have to have. And you realize like, wow, I actually have my work cut out for me in order to flip those apartment buildings. Maybe it's good that I can start here. I can start small. I can start flipping the single family house. And that's exactly what I did.
So, Peter, when you go into a house, what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for the flaws, the potentials, the numbers, the feelings? What are you looking for when you go into a place before you flip it?
Just numbers. Yeah, it's just a business. And so as a business, like it's a very, I mean, to some people, if they're not used to it, it may be complex, but it's very simple numbers. It's 1 + 1 = 2. Understanding the risks of what if 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, like how certain am I that 1 + 1 = 2? And then it's just a bunch of pieces, and you follow out the business plan, and you'll go from a ugly house to a beautiful house that is safe and clean, and a new family can move in and start making new memories with. So I know that sounds simple. It's obviously not as simple as that, but yeah, with the proper relationships and the right systems in place, it actually is a very simple business model.
So, when you go into a house to flip it, Peter, do you look at it as an inner healing journey? Because you're taking out all the garbage and then you're putting all the new stuff in. So it's kind of like a spiritual journey with the house?
I wish it was, and it probably,
Like, it's not like that.
yeah, it definitely could if like the timeline was shorter and the stress level wasn't as high. Because just like in any entrepreneur world, there's always the what is that? What is that? It's like a social media wave after a while. It's like what society thinks I do, what my parents think I do, what I actually do, what I think I do. There's all these different perceptions of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship and of business. So like for house flipping, everyone catches the highlights, right? Like, oh, wow, you bought this house for this amount, you put in this amount, you sold it for this amount. So you must have made, $60,000 on this house flip. And all you had to do was paint some walls and put in some floor. So that's, one perception. And then the other perception on my end is I am intentionally, or actually, let me take a step back. Am I being intentional with building a business that is going to serve a life of purpose and connection and not being a workaholic? Or am I building a business that in 2 to 3 years, I'm going to be equally as miserable then as when I started because I'm sucked so far into it and I'm not working on the business enough and I'm not being careful and intentional about what I'm actually doing. And then you're going to wake up and you're going to have this massive machine that constantly needs to be fed, and you're not happy. So in that instance, right, if you really think about a house, a physical house, and you clean it all up, you put something fresh and new inside of it, and you can think about it like your mind, where in a sense we got wired a certain way, and we're never going to be able to change that wiring unless we inspect it from time to time. So in the metaphor of like using your mind as using a house flip as like a spiritual journey, it can definitely tick all the boxes, because if you want to become a different person, like if you want to actually feel a different way and you want to have a different reality, like just a different day to day, emotion to emotion, feeling to feeling, you want to have a different reality, you got to inspect the wiring up there in your mind. And you have to understand, where is this emotional response coming from? If somebody tells me something and I feel a certain undesirable way, why is that? And then once you find that out, how are you going to rewire it so that you have a different emotional response? And there's a very clear example from this. I'll give a very clear example. So talking about actual alcoholism, right? Talking about drinking, that's a very shallow, superficial topic that as a kid, needless to say, like a lot of my friends, I watched a lot of my friends, unfortunately, lose the battle to alcoholism and drugs. And I didn't understand why. I didn't ask questions. All I could see is that as soon as they started drinking, they became somebody that they were not when they weren't drinking. And I wasn't, this was when I was like 13, 14 years old. So I wasn't old enough to kind of put the finger on it. All I knew is that wasn't real. And if it wasn't real, it wasn't safe. So I would distance myself from it. And as a by emotion to that, like I would get really angry or very upset if somebody drank, because I just wanted the best for them. And I was like, why are you doing that to yourself? And before I knew it, that had carried all the way up to when I was in adulthood, to where that prevented me from connecting. So it could even be as simple as just a social drink, a social setting where somebody would casually be socially having a glass of wine. I'll even take it a step further. I could be making a new connection with somebody, a stranger. And the minute that they mentioned any story of like, oh yeah, like this one time I was just having a couple beers with my friends, I would instantly shut off, close all connection, and walk away with like a very angry feeling in my chest. So you can imagine, like, especially in today's world, there was no way in hell that I was making any type of friends. And I had put myself up on a pedestal almost, like I was better than everybody because I didn't drink. And my therapist and my coaches, they helped me like verbalize that. And I was like, whoa, like that's not factual, but that's actually how I feel.
Yeah.
And why do I feel that? I did some investigative work. I dug deep. I filled up a bunch of, notepads and pages of like my inner feelings. And now someone can, I mean, my girlfriend, like she was out until 4 a.m. catching up with some of her friends, and they probably, got hammered with 2 or 3 bottles of wine. And I love her all the more the same. And I don't have any physical response to drinking. So sometimes I just take a moment, like I listen to my heart, and I kind of, I feel it, and I feel it calm when there's talk of drinking or drugs. And I'm like, man, I don't have any like physical response. Like that is a tangible thing that I can feel from like the result of my hard work to like understand my mind. So just like a house, as a way to bring this back around, yeah, like if you have to understand what clutter is up in your mind, and you have to be able to remove it to let way for the good, if you want to become somebody that you are not today.
I kind of like that you went back to the house, because it goes back to the house inspection. The house inspection is within ourselves. We're the house of our body.
Yeah.
You know, and the healing that we bring. And that's why I asked if it was a spiritual journey for you, because when you go in, you gut a place and you flip it over in the picture that I put on your flyer, Peter, where the before and after, that's what the house feels like. Like it went through hell too.
Yeah.
To come into this beautiful place, right?
Yeah.
You had to tear the walls down. You had to replace some of the bathrooms, toilets and stuff like that, or sinks, right? So that's kind of like our healing journey within ourselves. We got to get rid of stuff in order to heal ourselves. And that's what I kind of got when I did my homework on you, Peter, was that the flipping of the houses was kind of like your connection of what can I tear apart and tear out of me, and then put it back in and make it look better.
It's so weird that I never put it together like that. Like I know that before, when you and I were kind of putting this together, which I'm very grateful for, by the way. And you were kind of asking me these questions, like I would answer them, but I wouldn't actually make that connection. And it's so funny because I'm actually in the middle of a project right now where it's my heaviest rehab that I've ever done. We're putting in $80,000 to this house. And I bid on this house, and I bought this house sight unseen. And when I walked into this house for the first time, the family was still living there. There was a situation where we were going to give them a few weeks to collect their stuff and help them move out. And there was literally daylight coming in through the ceilings. The bathroom faucet was leaking uncontrollably, and the water was going straight into the dirt underneath the house. Like there was no floor. And it was a single mother with 2 kids. The house is overridden by mice, roaches, termites. It was not a safe place to live. And they had been living there for 15 years. And there was nothing like mentally wrong necessarily with the mother. Like she was working, she had a stable job. It was kind of one of those situations that it started out not good. They were used to it. They put up with it, and it slowly just got worse and worse and worse over the years, to a point where if anything had continued, I am very certain like the house would have literally, the raised foundation would have rotted through, and the house would have ceased to exist. And so, thinking about a situation like that, where I'm able to help this family, I'm able to put them into a clean, safe apartment. And now I have this house that has literal holes in the ceiling. There's holes in the wall. There's holes in the floor. And I'm able to just take everything out of it. We gut the entire house. We take out all the drywall. We tent the property. We fumigate it. We kill everything that's not supposed to be there inside. And to where it's literally just a bunch of sticks and some plastic on top. And then we put it all back together. And so we're midway through this project right now, and it's going along really good. We're on time and we're on budget. And I never made that connection of like ourselves. Like if you think about that house as our mind, maybe we don't necessarily have holes in our mind at first, but once we really start to inspect it, there's a lot of gaps between our logic of who we think we are versus how we respond and how we interact to the people around us. There can be some disconnection there. So yeah, I definitely have a new way of looking at that now. And in my line of work, with how passionate I am of inner workings and how passionate I am about real estate, it's kind of astounding why I never connected it like that.
And that's why you had to come to tea time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is probably my 35th or 36th, guest appearance on a show, and yeah, that never made the connection. So thank you, Liz.
Oh, you're very welcome, Peter. No, because when we talk back and forth, and I talk a lot to all of my guests back and forth, and I try to get to know you guys a little bit before you even come to the table, right? So then I can dig a little deeper. I can go down those rabbit holes a little bit more with you guys. And I never had house flipping, and I said house flipping.
Yeah.
And then you also sent me in a inner trauma healing. So I was just like, oh, I bet you the house flipping has to do with the healing within himself, and he's not even realizing it.
Yeah, surprise.
Well, and that's why I asked your tea, right? And your tea that you gave me, Peter, was truth, execution, and alignment. And that has to do with all of house flipping, right?
Yeah.
The truth of the house. Like when you go in, you see, oh, shoot, I have a lot of stuff that I have to do with this house. I'm not going for this one because this one's just a little bit too much for my budget and in my pocket. And the execution of what the final result will be,
Yeah. And to be fair, when I got into house flipping, it was strictly a business decision. It was like, hey, I want to learn these business skills. I want to learn these leadership skills. I'm going to make a little bit of money and I'm going to go flip apartment buildings. Like that was black and white in my mind. Right. And as we talked about earlier in this tea time, I was really struggling with the connection and the contribution and like my identity, like not necessarily as much as who I am, but what is my purpose here on this earth in this very short time that we have? Like, what is the whole point of life? And I thought that I had life figured out. I mean, you can go listen to some of my past episodes, and I would always say like the purpose of life is to feel emotion. So if we can't feel emotion and we're numb, like that's when suicides happen. That's when depression occurs. So like let yourself feel, like be in touch with your inner self. And that was from my own experience, from being numb and understanding, like, even like, you look at the emotion wheel and there's so many emotions that I'm like, I don't actually know what that feels like genuinely. So I had always thought that was the purpose of life. But as I transitioned into like my 30s and, I started being successful with this real estate business, that kind of nagging feeling of like, what is my contribution really? Like, really, like what is the purpose of life? It wasn't answered by my previous answers. And so I started house flipping from a strictly business perspective. And once I started to talk to sellers, see the situations that people were in, and I was like, oh man, like, this may not be my whole life. Like this may not be my career, but I have a chance to help these people. And I have a chance to do business fairly, to not equity strip as is very common in the industry, to have a base number and say, hey, this is what my number needs to be to grow my business. And if I happen to make more than that, I wasn't expecting that, I don't need that, I can give that back in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's donating to, donating to foundations, or even giving the sellers back more money, or, somehow just like being able to, I have this vision in my head where like over a holiday or, some period is like, I just want to be able to give like a $10,000 tip to a waitress that deserved it because she was doing everything right. Or he was, he told me my story and, maybe there's a way that I can help him chase his dreams, because I never want anybody to be held back from their dreams for something as trivial and simple as money. And again, that's tied back to my own trauma, like racing my bike and not being able to race as much because I didn't have the money. And I was like, it's so stupid that I have to have money to race, but if I go get the money, that's going to take away time from doing what I love. And it's that constant cycle. So yeah, I know full well that money is not the answer to happiness by itself, but it can definitely be the tool to make yourself happy, make other people's happy, and to contribute. So that's kind of one of the visions I have, is to just be able to go around for like a week and just tip everybody $1,000 or whatever.
So look out, Peter's coming in tipping everybody soon.
Yeah.
But Peter, you mentioned that you had the success, you had the money, you had the girls around you, the beautiful people when you were Uber driving, and you felt unhappy, you felt empty, right?
Right.
So now when house flipping, do you feel that emptiness still, or do you feel some fulfillment once the job is done?
Massive fulfillment when the job is done. Yeah. You know, I mean, this isn't creepy, right? Full disclaimer, but I love to drive past my houses after I've sold them, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months later, and kind of see the progression of the house. I drive past a week later, and maybe there's a personalized like lawn ornament or like house, like decor, or the blinds have changed. I'm like, okay, like they're happy, right? Um, Coming from my very disconnected childhood from family, and not really aligning with my family and just not feeling close or connected to them, that's when I get the biggest fulfillment. Is 6 months later, I'll drive past the house, maybe it's Christmas time, and the house is just decked out. Like, there's a tree in the front window, there's wreaths everywhere, there's like 10 cars in the driveway, and I'm like, you know what, like, they're making memories in there. Like, it's a full-on family, right? Like, in my market, there's a lot of Hispanic families, and there's a lot of different ethnicities and cultures that, you know for the most part, have a stronger family value than the Western world did, or maybe ever will. But they're creating memories, and just knowing that I had a little part in that, right? Like, I had a little part in creating that house that was safe, that was secure. And I just hope that whoever's living there is taking full advantage of, just being fortunate to have a roof over their heads. So yeah, I definitely get a lot of fulfillment from that, and just seeing the progression of the house after I've sold it, what happens to it for the next family.
So Peter, do you like seeing other people win and
Oh,
celebrate them?
oh, it's the best. That's the only I mean, that's one of the very few, um, that's the one of the very few, I guess, give backs that I'm able to receive, is seeing other people win, and winning alongside them. There's many a teenager or a young kid where, over time, they'll sort of see how I'm living my life, where it's like, I'm very passionate about cars too. Like, I drive a nice 911. I'm going to the gym at odd hours of the day. Maybe I want to get a 3 p.m. workout in, or a 10 a.m. workout in. And they'll sort of see me, like, obviously they don't see all the hard work that I'm doing in front of my computer behind the scenes, walking the properties. They just kind of see me always just smiling and happy and casual. And like, hey, like, what do you do for work? Like, what do you do for your life? Like, like, can I get in on that? Like, whatever that is. And I'll always help somebody once. I'll always help somebody if they come back twice. I'll always help somebody if they come back 3 times. And the young adults that I am able to help communicate to them sort of the things that they're struggling with, whether that be with their connection to their family, their business path, their path with their relationships, being able to be that person that I wish that I had growing up. That's the most, and you'll hear that with any person that feels connected to their life, is probably the reason that they feel connected is because they have been able to bridge the gap between the trauma that they felt, and preventing that a similar trauma from happening in another individual. That human connection of being able to say, hey man, like, I see what you're going through, and empathizing with them and helping them move forward, so that they too could also ripple out and spread something good. So yeah, definitely, that's a big purpose of life, is to give back, and to, you know remember who you are and where you came from, and to always find the good in somebody else.
Well, I asked you that, Peter, because I understand that disconnect with family, right? I left my family in 2005, for my own mental health being, my own safety. And I'm like you. I love celebrating people because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have that celebration of myself, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
always go you be seen but not heard. Oh, she's over there. Oh, okay, we're good. And that's why I asked you that question, Peter. And that's what I like to do with my guests is I like to understand why we celebrate other people. And our inner child is celebrating what we never got,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know? So Peter, if flipping houses stop being about money tomorrow, what deeper purpose would still drive you to do it?
I could argue that it actually stopped being about money, yesterday. Now to a point, like it is my business, and it is how I feed myself and how I pay my bills. Uh, but I could argue that, because I always ask myself all the time, like anytime I want to expand into a new market, or chase after a new marketing channel, or add on something else, like stretch myself a little bit to where I'm stressed. I'm trying to figure out this problem. I have people depending on me, and it's not fun. A water pipe breaks, and you kind of question, like, why am I doing this exactly? And you have a laugh, and you pour a cup of tea, and you do it all over again. Um, and really, like, in the quest for, yeah, as humans, right? I think that we're always going to be answering that question of who am I? And inadvertently or not, the people that have allowed themselves to feel and have allowed themselves to explore, we're always going to be answering that question of who am I? What is my contribution on this earth? And how can I answer that question, and how can I fulfill my contribution? So, with house flipping, the more that I get into it, and the more, like, I guess, for lack of a better term, the more easier it becomes, and the less dopamine you get from it, the less excitement that you get. Any business is going to get boring after a while. Any business is going to get repetitive. I don't care how flashy or how exotic it is. Like, anything that you're doing repetitively is going to get boring. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the human mind, that we like to get dopamine from something new, something exotic, something flashy, right? So it really causes you to question, like, not only what my impact is, but is that an impact that aligns with who I am? Because, like, real estate's very diverse. I mean, you could impact a different person in a different way. You could spin it however you want it, but it's not going to be sustainable unless it speaks to you and it ties back to a past trauma that you have. And so, answering that question of, like, again, who am I? I mean, if house flipping, if money was not an object tomorrow, like, what would be the purpose of continuing it? Um, I think it would be answering that call of, like, talking about the topic of housing and feeling safe. Like, as humans, four walls, like, we like to wrap ourselves up and feel safe in that way. um, it would be like, giving a damn. And being, especially in a super red tape state like California, it's no secret that our housing here is in extreme demand. Homeless numbers are at all-time high. Whether or not that homeless person made a choice to be homeless or not, there comes a point where it doesn't matter. Like, there is a problem out there. And doing business in an ethical and a fair way for all parties involved. We're always fighting that temptation of, like, well, I could accept this higher offer, or I could not do this deal because I'm not making enough money, or kind of materialistic things like that.
Yeah.
um, and that's always going to be a struggle in any business. But yeah, wrapping it back around to finding your purpose of, like, who am I going to help beyond the money. I mean, that's definitely necessary to keep any business going. And I think, at least for me, the moment that I got a couple cycles in of having success, getting my dream car, going on my dream vacations, like, okay, I did all that, cool, now what? Like, I still have, don't get me wrong, like, I still have materialistic goals. Like, I still have goals that I'm going to chase after in my life, but I know very well that if and when I do get there, it's not going to mean anything if I don't have certain people around me. And if I do have certain people around me, I'm going to celebrate that goal for a minute, for a day, for a month, whatever. But I know that it's going to fade as quick as it comes, as quick as it's going to go. And I know that. I know that that's not the point of life. It's, that's just, a goal is just a moment to celebrate for a quick moment. But it's by far not the whole picture, and it is by far not the point of the journey at all.
Well, Peter, you're an entrepreneur, so we know you're not just going to be doing house flipping. You're going to come up with something else, because that's what we do as entrepreneurs, right? Is we get bored. We're like, okay, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. Now what do we do? So what is Peter going to do next?
That's a good question. And I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I kind of, there's a whole lot of different parts of myself that haven't really been scratched yet. Like I have a whole lot of different itches that hasn't, been scratched yet. But again, I mean, it really comes down to just being connected and fulfilled, and not finding the balance, because I don't believe in balance. But finding that integration between scratching all those itches and just being present in the moment and taking pause, and like really understanding that like life is short, answering that question of who am I and what is my contribution, and coming to peace and coming to terms with it. I mean, I think finding peace for me, I mean, my purpose of life is I want to be content, because I want to be content with the trajectory and pace of business and in life. Because definition of trajectory is speed and direction, right? So whether my business is going super fast or whether it's going super slow, I just want to be content with that, and being able to be present in the moment, being safe in my body so that I can be present and in the moment and spread that safety onto others. That's part of my mission statement.
So Peter, for all those house flippers out there, what message do you have for them?
Keep going. Keep going, and reach out. I mean, we're very good. Any entrepreneur is very good at isolating themselves. And that is the worst thing that we can do as entrepreneurs and as humans, right? There are a few nutcases out there that actually thrive on isolation, right? I was one of those nutcases myself for a very long time, where I was just so happy by myself in the middle of nowhere for weeks on end. But biologically, as humans, we need connection. We need other people around us, and not just anybody. We need a certain type of person. We need like-minded individuals that we can feel connected to and grow from and learn from. So my advice for any entrepreneur or any human listening to this, if you feel lonely, stuck, overwhelmed, pick up the phone and call somebody. Go to a restaurant and just talk to a random person. Even just a little bit of interaction, connection can go a really long way of getting out of your head.
Well, I really enjoyed this tea and having you spill a good, strong cup of tea, because I never know where these teas are going to go with my guests. I just let the flow go, and I let whatever comes to the table come to the table. So thank you so much, Peter, for that. Thank you to all the listeners out there. I'm just going to do a wrap up of what tonight's tea time was, and then we're going to wrap it up. And Miss Liz will be back Tuesday and Thursday next week, and we'll do this all over again. But tonight, Peter, thank you for reminding us that restoration takes vision and courage. Flipping a house requires patience, planning, and belief in what could be. Inner healing asks the same of us. To everyone listening tonight, reflect on this. What part of your life needs renovation, not demolition? Where are you seeing damages instead of potential? What foundations are you strengthening in this season? Healing, like rebuilding, doesn't happen overnight, but with intention, what once felt unlivable can become home again. Until next time, keep rebuilding gently, keep restoring intentionally, and remember, the greatest flip you will ever work on is yourself. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys same time, same place, and we'll do this all over again.
Thank you, Liz.